What do you think is in 3 years? So it was 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago, where we had this type of interview. In 3 years from now, which happens very, very fast, what is the best and worst case scenario do you see in what that span looks like?
Um, so I met a futurist once that said the most probabilistic outcome is, and I thought that was a nice way of putting it. So the most probabilistic outcome is that we will have adopted in 3 years, we'll have adopted a UBI, universal basic income, because it's the only quick fix solution that politics can bring to bear on the situation. Because it's easy, right? We're going to pay everyone $25,000 a year, which means you might not have meaning, you might not have quality of life, but at least you can feed your kids type money. So I think that that becomes inevitable because we're not doing anything now. So the only solutions that government and politics will be able to enact is something that happens quick. It's got to be something that they're like, oh, okay, sorry, we were sleeping on the job. Here's
Yeah.
some money. That will buy us another couple of years. I think that people like myself will be more wealthy than we were now because the current estimates is GDP will go up, but GDP per capita will go down because I've decided now to harness this technology and use it and find the ways to make myself more productive. So I think I'll be sitting on hopefully quite a large pile of cash, but my ability to earn will start to taper off quite quickly because there won't be people to sell stuff to anymore because they won't have any money. Um, if you want to go like full doomsday scenario, the typical historical references show us at 20% unemployment, you get inter-country conflict, you get riots and civil unrest and people really quite unhappy with their life. And at 25%, you tend to get inter-country conflict of where no one gets thrown out of power if they can say it was somebody else's fault. So you get countries invading other countries, which means that the military machine can then fuel employment because you need people to build bombs and guns and planes, etc. So that's the horrific scenario. The hope is that somewhere in the next 3 years, we will find regulatory solutions. Most people aren't overly optimistic that that will happen because, and I'm not being political for anyone who listens to this, but when President Trump came in, the very scant amount of regulations that we did have were removed. And they weren't big to begin with, but they were taken away. The European AI Act, as a result of President Trump's removal of the regulation in the States, the large tech companies then opted out of the EU AI Act because they could. So the only legislation that could have provided us with something was taken away. But even then, that didn't cover, well, how are you going to flow the money? Right. So, and this, I've heard some normal answers, which is you have to tax companies using AI. I think that the tech companies have far too big a lobby for that to ever happen. Another solution I saw, which I thought was quite ingenious, was you have to pay the AI and it then has to spend the money. Um, so you
You're
like, you have
treating
to
it
pay
like
them
a
for it.
an economy. You're treating
Yeah.
AI as its own economy.
And it would then independently decide to give money to charity and like it could, and it would save some money in retirement accounts. It's like, it's a
It's
really
probably
crazy
planned
idea.
it out better than us.
Yeah. But it does have some legs to it of how it would work. And I think what people miss inside this is, first of all, I think we're all much happier understanding the status quo. Fortunately, my brain works better understanding it. It can accept a future that looks nothing like the present to some degree. Most people, I think, when you talk about this, they think it's just hyperbolic. Yeah, okay, whatever. But AI does hit every sector, every vertical, every geography. So when people say, yeah, but when the telephone was automated, telephone operators went and worked for somebody else. Like, yes, because that was one innovation that hit one industry. This is a paradigm shift that hits every industry, every vertical at the same time.
Well, on On that point, where you look at it's hitting everything, that's how it's changing every single thing. And what I'm curious about is that 10-year zone, because you described it as the zone of AGI or super intelligence. Um, but you didn't describe what you thought would happen with that. So if there's this zone in 3 years and to your point where you're describing the the telephone operators being eliminated, and people can't necessarily imagine that when before it happens, but then when it happens, there's the adaptability to it. And 3 years ago, we couldn't imagine that we'd be seeing videos that look real that AI made, and we didn't touch it. Nobody touched it, just AI made it. And there's these videos that look extremely realistic. We couldn't have imagined that, but there now we have it. So when you're speculating, what are we not imagining from that now through 3 year to 10-year zone? What do we not, because we don't know what we don't know. And I'm not saying that you will be able to know, but if you were to just speculate, like what else are we seeing? One thing I know you've said before are robots. We couldn't imagine before that robots could do some of the things that they're doing right now. And in the past, they were having difficulty getting robots to do things like plumbing, things like making beds in hotels. Like robots really have struggled with those things. So where do you think things are going from now to that 10-year mark where there could be super intelligence?
I think the thing was a great set of questions. I think the thing that most people miss when they talk about is most technologies in the past have really affected the demand side of the equation, not the supply side of the equation. The last time we saw such a systemic shift in supply was the Industrial Revolution. And which led to things like unions, it led to an entirely different way of living. People nowadays are very, very grateful for the Industrial Revolution because everything you see around you in some ways came from that movement. But it was a horrific time to live. The leading cause of death was smoke inhalation. The average child didn't make it beyond 16. Like it was like 50% of all deaths of all children were due to smoke inhalation because we're putting them in factories to fuel these factories, which is what led to unions. Um, we're talking about a supply side change, not a demand side change. So, I mean, just off the top of my head, NVIDIA will become the most valuable company in the world in comparison to every other company added up. Like NVIDIA, I think NVIDIA will be 50% of the world's economy. This is the thing, when you say these numbers, they come out of your mouth like they're ridiculous, and they come true because NVIDIA is the sole provider of the chips that make these LLMs. So the underpinning value of NVIDIA is going to be horrendous. They're the first company to hit $5 trillion valuation a couple of months ago. Then let's talk about humanoid robots. The current estimate from Elon Musk and Warren Buffett is that they will outnumber humans 2 to 1 by 2035. So we'll have 18 billion humanoid robots to the 9 billion humans that we have, which is crazy. But the idea of making your own bed or making your own coffee or cooking your own food will disappear, which means that plumbers and electricians and sports massage and personal trainers, and there's so many professions that as soon as robotics gains the dexterity that humans have, just become obsolete in a day. And the thing I find one of the most interesting things about this is, and we're doing this at the moment, and it's natural and it's right, but people take this and then say, "Oh, I'm terrified, therefore I'm not going to." And that's the bit where I'm like, You've made a mistake, because it doesn't matter how terrified you are. It doesn't matter if you're an AI advocate. It doesn't matter if you're an AI naysayer. What matters is the data says this is what's happening. There's no argument now, and there was 3 years ago when I started talking about it, but there's no argument that we are walking into an AI first future. That is, I think almost everybody now agrees that's a fact. So if you're going to imagine if you were to turn around to people and say, "Hey, we currently breathe oxygen, but just so you know, in 3 years' time, we're going to be breathing nitrogen. Would you like to start training on how to breathe nitrogen now or in 3 years' time? I think everyone will go, well, I should probably start on that now. Yes, you should probably start on that now. AI, what we find is people going, oh, I don't like it, so I'm not going to touch it. Or I don't understand it, so I'm not going to get my hands around it. You don't have a choice. You don't, I'm sorry to everybody that, within the realms of humans have free will, you don't have a choice. This is something that is coming. It is happening. It is like paying tax. You have to get on board with this because your only chance of a rosy future is to get on board with it. And I'm not saying if you get on board with it, you will have a rosy future. I'm saying if you get on board with it, you have a chance of having a rosy future. Because there was a phrase at the beginning, 2024, and the phrase was either you adopt AI or you'll work for somebody that does. And I remember every time I heard it going, why would I employ somebody that doesn't? Why would I have someone come in that says they can work 6 hours a day when somebody else comes in and say, yeah, I can do like 300 hours of output every day. Like I'll take that person. Thanks very much. So I don't think you have a choice but to wrap your arms around this and embrace the madness. What fun.
Embrace the madness. Okay, so now you think of, you have 2 kids, a daughter and a son. You have a wonderful wife, and you're looking at the future in 3 years. Do you make any particular personal changes now? You've said, yes, you want to train in AI, but what about your life? Like, do you start um, buying a different kind of house? Do you start, like, is there anything you would do now that, do you invest differently? Do you travel differently because it might be different for travel at that point? Like, is there anything that you think of? I know you are so immersed in AI and that's your primary focus, but for the other people in the world who aren't all AI, they're utilizing AI, they're trying to understand AI, but what differences would you suggest if you're looking at a changed world, which is what you're describing, a changed world, a revolution? What differences what would you want to do now that maybe you couldn't do then? Or
Hmm. So the first thing is, so I'll answer the easy one. All of the investments I have are through the lens of AI. So this is not investment advice. But I have a lot of money. Of my personal money is wrapped up in things like nuclear waste disposal, because the energy grid cannot handle what we're doing. As every estimate goes, the grid cannot handle these data centers. So companies like Facebook, Microsoft, Oracle, Google are investing in what are called mini nuclear reactors. These mini nuclear reactors. So if you start looking at the second and third order consequences, well, what comes from that is, well, who's going to dispose of the nuclear waste that comes from the nuclear reactors? And there's only 2 companies in the US that can do that. So um, when I start looking, I look at business models and go, well, does this business model still exist? So I think the most valuable thing in 2-3 years will be human connection. So I think live experiences, concerts, travel will go through the roof. But again, in certain classes. So I think first class travel and business class travel will go up, but I think coach class travel will go down. Because if you're saying GDP is going up, GDP per capita is going down, what you're saying is, and this is really unfortunate, that wealth is going to get further centralized into a select few people, which is really disappointing. I'm not advocating for that by any way, shape, or form, but looking at how I run my business, it's like, well, that's going to be there. That's where I need to head towards. I think it's always better to plan for the future than plan for the past. That's number one. Number two, with our kids, I'm not particularly interested at this point in any of their academic qualifications, certifications. I really don't care, because I don't think they'll be going to college or university, because I don't think it will exist in any way. But what I do care about is their soft skills. I do care about their empathy, their communication, their relatability, their compassion. I want them to be good humans. And I think We're investing a lot of time into that. I have absolutely no interest in them learning to drive because I think cars will all be self-driving by the time they get there. So that's irrelevant. From how I lead my life, I really do find it terrifying. The Marianne Williamson quote, we're not scared of the darkness, we're scared of the light that we can become. I'm hugely getting that quote wrong. But what I wake up with every day is this reality that there is no knowledge that is now hidden from me. So there's no excuse. There's no excuse for me to not be my ideal weight. There's no excuse for me to not have a perfect blood panel. There's no excuse for me to not earn the money I want to earn. I really can be whoever I want to be. And I don't think that was true a couple of years ago. But you can now go to ChatGPT and say, I want to own a business that buys land and flips it to home developers. Write me the 30-day plan. Tell me what I should buy. How do I value it? Who do I sell it to? What do I do? What resources do I need? What processes do I need? What people do I need? Go. And then go walk away and make yourself a coffee, come back half an hour later, and you've got a 100-page business plan. Now, that will still have problems, but it'll be a downside better than you could have bought from any consultant. So you could have gone and paid KPMG 100K. You wouldn't get as good an outcome as you would from ChatGPT. So for the people that are saying, oh, I wish I was, or I'd love to own my own business someday. So, well, the only reason you're not is because you don't really want it as much as you think you do. And the fear of doing it. And that's okay. Like, I'm not trying to advocate for anyone to do anything. But for me, it has removed any excuse that I had. We have a phrase inside the company, which is AI is not coming for your job, but it is coming for your excuses. And that I find liberating and terrifying at the same time. So every decision that I'm making is through this lens of adaptability and flexibility, because these are our forward-looking predictions. They haven't yet come to pass. Humans are incredibly resilient, so we can talk about the end of the world, but we've had that conversation for thousands of years. So is this one really different? Or is this just self-affirming talk that makes me believe it's different? So I want to be as flexible and fluid as possible. As an example, I ran a company in Dubai when 9/11 hit. And Dubai's economy is 80, or at the time it was 88% tourism. Abu Dhabi has the oil, Dubai really doesn't. So Dubai's economy is just tourism. The day after 9/11, no one got on a plane to the Middle East. It was a ghost town. It was empty. And I remember standing in my office saying to my team, it feels like I'm the captain of the Titanic, because I couldn't change anything. I had PTSN phone systems, like the phone system was on the wall, and I had servers in racks in my office, and we had PCs, not laptops. And everyone was on long-term contracts. Everyone was salaried, and my office was a 10-year contract, a 10-year lease. I was like, I can't change anything. I can't do anything. All my customers are disappearing. And I can't change the company in any way, shape, or form. So I swore to myself that if I ever ran a business again, I'd have laptops, not desktops. Didn't matter how expensive they were. Everyone would be on short-term contracts. Didn't matter how much that was going to cost me. Offices would be on short-term leases. Didn't matter how much that was going to cost me. I would always use VoIP for phone systems, Google Drive systems, so that I would always have the flexibility and fluidity to move as things needed me to move. When you hit COVID 4 years ago now, I was watching companies scramble because they were saying we have to work from home, but we don't even have the infrastructure to work from home. And I was like, well, as long as I've got my laptop and a connection to Google Drive, I'm good. So, because I'd already been through it once. So I'd say, it's a long answer, I'm sorry, but my greatest direction right now is the flexibility and fluidity and being willing to course correct on a day-by-day basis as this future becomes more real.
It's what you're describing with the course correction and flexibility. That really is the human adaptability. We have something that has had us continue to evolve for so long that we've overcome things that should have potentially been our destruction. On that note, when you say no knowledge is hidden, yet we are adaptable, there's no stopping us. And at the same point, what stops us, even though we have all the knowledge in the world, what stops us is ourselves. What stops us is the human condition. What stops us is that we have a belief system or thoughts that have us go in one direction instead of the direction we really want to go. So eventually, when we're looking at, you look at 30 years down the road, if I think of myself in 30 years, I'm in my early 80s. And I know myself.
No one would believe you. We'd say early 60s, but sure.
Sure, whatever. So, and I think of myself at that point, and I don't stop learning. I've always loved to learn. I will continue to learn. I will, hopefully my brain is still optimized. So at that point, you're describing in 30 years that we don't need to solve problems because AI super intelligence will have created some level of utopian society, perhaps if humans are still existing, and we don't have to solve for things. Yet as humans, we want to. As humans, we crave that kind of necessity. So we will be creating something that is the alternative to having all of our problems solved. And I think of if I'm in my early 80s and there's children coming up into a world, which they are right now, they're coming into a world where if they can do things really easily and they don't have to problem solve, it changes how their brain assimilates information. It changes how their brain outputs information. So when you're looking at that, what do you think are some of the things that, do we simply become far more simplistic and that now we want to solve the problems of digging a well and solve the problems of do we devolve, but that becomes a new evolution because we've, like you said, reset in a way that we literally have to go through some of the processes we originally did because we're so cared for by AI. I know. I see you pondering this. You're like, well, well.
Well,
And I'm not expecting that you have these answers. We're looking to imagine, to speculate.
Well, Neil deGrasse Tyson, I've just been reminded by a companion right now. Neil deGrasse Tyson said that he hopes that when we grow up, when AI grows up, it treats us like a dog. That was his opinion.
Don't treat us like people.
Yeah, he was like, and the interviewer was kind of shocked. He's like, no, I really want this. He's like, if you think about, we have a phrase that it's a dog's life because dogs sleep when they want, they get exercised by us, they have balanced nutrition, they have clean drinking water, we hug them when they want hugs, and we even pick up their poop. He's like, that doesn't sound like a bad life. That's why it's phrased, it's a dog's life. So if AI has stepped in and has looked after that big stuff for us, we currently, you're correct, we currently find our meaning in growth and problem solving, etc. But maybe our next version of us is a lot slower. Maybe the next version of us is just more interested in being more intentional in our communication with other humans and less reactive. Maybe we spend time meditating and then going, you know what, I haven't called that friend for ages. Maybe I should give them a call. And we're actually achieving a lot less. And we're returning more to being human beings than human doing. So we're not valuing ourselves on what we do anymore. We're valuing ourselves on who we are. And yeah, maybe just like, dogs go, look at me, I just brought you a blanket. Aren't I intelligent? And we go, yes, you are. You're so special. Maybe AI and us is working the same. Maybe we're going, look what I did. Maybe I just go, yeah, you go. And just keeping us in our veil of innocent, naive mediocrity, but we believe we're being super clever and super special. Maybe it's that. I've been on record saying this many times, and I always want to make sure I always reiterate it. I'm not an advocate for any of this. I don't think it was a good thing. I think that the results are going to be pretty horrific for a couple of years. And that doesn't change the fact that I've always been a pragmatist. I've always been a realist. And it is, we don't have a choice to decide whether AI is or isn't. It is, this is what we're doing. The planet has decided that the sovereign wealth funds have invested trillions of dollars to make that happen. It is not going anywhere. So with that said, I find myself in this weird position where I am advocating for something that I wish didn't happen, but it did and it does. So I would rather live in the world that's presented to me, but you can't control the cards you get dealt. You can only control how you play the cards you're dealt. And there's so many people that are saying, "Oh, AI is the devil. Or AI does this," and it's like, yeah. Right, so what are you doing with it? Well, nothing. Right, okay, so you're just allowing the bad guys that you're saying to keep controlling the narrative of the thing, so it'll never become anything decent. It'll just get even worse. So it's just a fascinating time, and the reconciliation for me, because I spent a year just terrified. The reconciliation was actually Elon Musk, who I'm not an advocate of. I'm not against, not an advocate. And he said, "Would you rather live through history or read about it?" And it's like, no, I'd definitely rather live through history than read about it. And we are living through history right now to such a degree. And I definitely don't want to be the person that, like, when you ask your granddad, where were you for the moon landing? It's like, I was at the pub, didn't think it was a big deal. Because there would have been people like that that just ignored it because they didn't think it was a big deal. And apparently it was a really big deal. I don't want to not play this game because it's a fascinating game. It moves every day, changes every day in so many magical ways. And I just reminded myself something when you said earlier, like, who'd have thought that we would have videos that would never touched by humans? That was what I wanted to say about the supply and demand side of the equation, because we could always do that. Hollywood has been doing that for 20 years. We see scenes in films regularly that never existed. The difference here is it's not the outcome, it's not the product that's different. It's the process and the democratization of the process that's so different, because now everybody can do that. That's the thing. It's when we look at AI can do this, it's like, yeah, well, humans could write that report on buying land and flipping it, but not many humans could do that. Now everybody can do it. We have democratized everything. And it's up to people now to grab it, hold it, and run with it and do interesting things with it.
Well, and this is to your point earlier, this is where the soft skills come in, because the people who can communicate with each other, the people who can understand themselves to actually have themselves take action on something, that's where something is going to get done, either interhuman, so with the connections with each other, or when it comes to interacting with AI or creating something that's different or managing or adapting to what's happening with AI. Those soft skills that we've kind of set aside for so long and now are becoming more and more important will be maybe our saving grace and what keeps us most human instead of robotic.
Yeah, I do think that this will be the greatest leveler in gender equality that we've ever seen, because the skill sets that are traditionally regarded as masculine, um, AI's better than we are. The skill sets that are traditionally regarded as feminine, AI isn't as good as we are. So
That's because there's more learning from men.
yep.
So
But like
yeah,
straight
we're
line
learning more.
thinking, get this done, AI is great. What AI sucks at is, well, should we even do it? Right, that's a good question. I think I'd have loved to have seen what would have happened to Facebook and social media if that was a female-led invention, not a male-led invention.
There was
Because
a
there didn't seem to be much thought in the invention of Facebook as to whether we should actually do it, whether is it actually a good idea or not, and what's going to be the consequences of doing it.
I
And
saw a
I'm
vid-
broadly stereotyping the genders when I say
no, no,
this.
it makes sense, but it's this video that makes me think of it's that there was a car video, they were giving a nod to International Women's Day, and in this car video, they acknowledged things like the headlights, the reverse lights, the blinkers, the seat warmers, the like a whole bunch of the rearview mirror, the all of these things that we take for granted that are parts of a vehicle now, but they were all invented by women in the auto industry because women were the ones to think of those things that either saved our lives, made us more comfortable, made it safer for other humans, made it whatever. So, to your point, yes, the question of should we do this or is this the direction instead of just plowing forward? How does it affect others? What are the interplays that come from this? It's interesting that you say that. And I do recall you saying at one point that this is like a tsunami coming, and you feel like you are standing on the beach with a bucket, and you're trying to get a whole bunch of other people to come on the beach with a bucket, knowing that you may not make the difference, but it's worth trying. And this was something you'd said maybe a year, 2 years ago.
Yeah, I wasn't even that long ago. It was, I remember where I was when I said it because I was speaking to the founder of a big publicly traded company, and she said, "It sounds like you're on facing down a tsunami with a kid's bucket." And I said, "You're absolutely right. I am, but my kids are on the beach. What would you have me do?"
Hmm.
And I think that as you grow older, you start. I think when you're younger, or certainly when I was younger, so I'm not going to talk for other people. When I was younger, I fought the fights that were worth fighting. Like I would try and slay Goliath all the time. Like, yeah. And then I think in my 20s and my 30s, I stopped doing that and I fought the fights I could win, not the fights that were worth fighting. And with the advent of AI, I have reverted to fighting the fights worth fighting. I don't believe that I'm going to make a meaningful difference in this at all. But I also look at my son and my daughter and go, I don't really have much choice because they need, I don't think humans need money, but we do need meaning. And currently, for most people, meaning and money are interconnected. Um, and I'm not sure that's a particularly good thing, but for most people, the ability to earn and produce is part of the meaning of who they are.
Performative.
So, will they even have jobs? And if they do have jobs, will those jobs give them meaning? I'm not saying they have to be doctors or accountants or lawyers, because apart from anything else, none of those are going to exist by the time we get there. But if they find meaning by running a coffee shack on the beach, fantastic. Like, love it. Do that, because those are actually going to be quite valuable professions. How ironic is that? A CPA is probably not going to exist by the time my children hit employment, but somebody that can run a beach bar in Bali is probably going to get paid a lot of money.
Isn't that interesting? The serving, the waitering or waitressing, the things that are, yeah, yeah. I have those skills from back in the day,
Yeah,
adaptable.
we'll be okay.
Like, let's go.
And people hear that and they think I'm being pithy. I'm like, no, those are the points of human connection.
Yeah.
Those are the
Sure.
things that actually, when you close your eyes on your deathbed and you remember your life, most people remember a collection of human interactions. Um, like some of them, marriage or birth of your children, but some of them, like, as you know, recently, a very, very dear friend of mine passed away. And I've just been hit by flash upon flash upon flash of these micro moments of just me and him laughing or having fun or doing something or being stupid or getting ourselves in trouble. But I can't remember any financial transaction I did with him. Those things are not stored in my memory. So the value of human interaction and engagement will go up, which has got to be a good thing.
Yeah, I think that's very much needed. I want to give people a chance to reach out to you, but first, can you give people who are using AI, can you give them 3 tips as to just some best use tips that could help their success with using ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity or whatever they're using?
Yeah. So the first thing is for people that are a bit more on the fence, 15 minutes a day, just literally just make it like a prescription. Spend 15 minutes a day with AI. And if you don't know what to ask it, tell it you don't know what to ask it. Start with that. So that'll be for those people. For people like on the next step up, I would say to remember there are two ways to use AI. So I'm kind of layering this up. So don't use it at all. Start using it. Don't ask yourself, should I use ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini? Don't bother. Just use one of them. Doesn't matter. Just get yourself in the mode of it. For the next set of people up, I would say remember that it isn't actually as good as we are yet. So if you're working on something that's your secret sauce, your special skill, tell it exactly what you want it to do, how it should do it, why it should do it, when it should do it, where it should be. Very, very descriptive. If you're working on something that isn't your secret special skill, acquiesce to it. Allow it to become the conductor of it and it to ask you questions. So I will prompt it in one of two ways. I'll either say, hey, this is what I want you to do. This is it. This is it. This is it. Or I'll say, hey, I think I need to eat more vegetables, but I'm not eating vegetables. Let's walk through a plan. Ask me questions, uncover my hidden bias, uncover the psychological triggers that's leading me to this problem, and give me plans that I can enact. So that swap of operation. And then for people that are more advanced in it, I would say that the context is more important than the prompt. And we suspected this from the very beginning, and it came out last year and was confirmed by OpenAI that the context is responsible for 98% of the output, and the prompt is responsible for 2% of the output. So what that means is if you say, help me write this proposal, 5 words, you should be aiming for around 2,500 words of context of what does a proposal mean to you? What outcome are you seeking? What time are you seeking it to be done in? Who's the company? What's the background? What's the case studies? And I'll put a fourth one in there. She said 3, but I'll put a fourth. Is at the moment, if you're skipping more than 1 unit of time, the output isn't good. And it looks like it's good because AI is really convincing. So what I mean by that is if a job used to take you hours and it's now taking you seconds, then you have missed too many steps of giving it enough context. You can skip 1 unit of time with AI now, which should be enough for people to be excited. Okay. If it used to take you weeks, it can now take you days. If it used to take you days, it can now take you hours. If it used to take you hours, it can now take you minutes. If it used to take you minutes, it can now take you seconds. But if you turn around and say, this used to take me a week and I just got it done in 5 minutes, I would say that you have missed too many steps in the process, which normally is that context.
Amazing advice. I love it. And in terms of a piece of advice, if you were to give yourself or the younger version of you, the past version of you, a piece of advice, what would it be?
Double down quicker.
Double down quicker.
I
Awesome.
didn't, I found it hard to fully believe myself 3 years ago because the numbers were just so ridiculous. When you talk about 50% job displacement, you talk about adding trillions of dollars onto the economy. Yeah. And I would say them, and I didn't not believe them, but
It's hard to believe.
so I didn't go as far in as I could have gone, as quickly as I could have gone there. And we're trying to fix that now, going, okay, when we see something go, this is about to blow up in a huge way, let's not wait for everybody else to find out.
Yeah.
So to thyself be true and trust yourself, I think would be the number one thing to say.
Trust yourselves. I love it. How can people reach you, Peter?
Thank you. They can reach me on my website, which is www.peterswain.com, PETERSWAIN.com, or any of the socials. They're all the same. It's Peter Swain 24/7, whether it's LinkedIn, X, Facebook, Insta, TikTok, they're all the same. Peter Swain 24/7.
Amazing. And I'd love to point people to your incredible mastermind. It allows people to really start to practically use AI in ways that can help them figure out what they need to use AI for their purposes, to get it to work for them. It's an amazing mastermind. And thank you so much for being with us. I love sharing your knowledge. I think this is so important in this time that we're in right now. and love to keep learning from you.
Thank you so much. And thank you again to everyone that stuck around. Appreciate you all. Thank you.